Cláudia Plens, the coordinator of the project Colonization of the Sacred Place of the Xanon territory of Marauatzet and São Marcos, would like, on behalf of the entire team, to thank the organizers of this panel for the opportunity to present some reflections on this pioneering research program developed in Brazil. Our aim is to contribute to investigation and documentation of human rights violations against marginalized groups, such as indigenous population in Brazil. Working in collaboration with the indigenous community is especially important in the context of the current political and economic situation in Brazil. We examined how archaeology, forensic anthropology, and linguistics can contribute to documenting human rights violations. The archaeology of colonialism focuses on intercultural relations of domination, in which the colonizer consistently uses violence to appropriate the land and subjugate the population, aiming to exploit the resources of the colonized territory. Multiple forms of colonialism are responsible for social exclusion, legitimized by historical discourses in which the voices of the colonized indigenous peoples are either ignored or appropriated. Culture building is a dynamic historical and institutional process built through selective appropriations of a multifaceted base. These appropriations, based on the intentions and interests of certain social groups, can have far-reaching consequences for minority segments of the society, such as indigenous people. An interdisciplinary approach to examining discourses and memory building from various perspectives is necessary in order to expose and avoid these consequences. In Brazil, historical archaeology is responsible for discussing and bringing to light many of these cases involving issues of conflict and violations of human rights caused by colonialism. In this sense, interdisciplinary methodology and theoretical framework of academic studies in this field need to incorporate the methodology of forensic science in order to conduct a thorough investigation of criminal activities in an appropriate way, given that forensic investigation form a part of police work and are rarely conducted focusing on crimes committed by the state. It's up to the academic projects to incorporate this type of research that otherwise will not be carried out. Internationally, there were numerous attempts to denounce violations of human rights of indigenous communities committed by the Brazilian government. In the late 1970s, different indigenous people accused the Brazilian state of human rights violations during the military dictatorships from 1974 to 1985 at the Bertrand Russell Court, now known as the People's Court, an international court that makes recommendations but has no legal punitive power. The lack of properly verified information meant that only two cases were considered by the court, the case of the Nambiquara and the case of Rio Negro indigenous groups. The Nambiquara were forced to leave their territory because of the construction of the highway BR-364, which connects the city of Cuiabá to Porto Velho, in the Midwest regions of Brazil. The construction was financed by the World Bank. The Nambiquara and other indigenous populations, such as the Waimiri Atuari, were bombed with napalm in 1976, causing an enormous number of deaths of these two groups. The indigenous populations of Rio Negro were subjugated by the Salesian missions with the knowledge of the government. The recommendation of the Russell Court did not have any legal repercussions and did not allow for any aspect of justice or preparation for indigenous groups. The lack of systematic and scientific evidence, despite pervasive common knowledge, has never allowed the Inter-American Court of Human Rights to condemn the Brazilian state for multiple crimes against indigenous populations. When working for indigenous groups, archaeology has a great potential to unravel these forgotten or suppressed voices and bring social justice to minority groups victimized in the past and in the present. Particularly relevant for groups identity in territorial claims, as well as for understanding the history of their exploitation and exclusion, is documentation of their natural and social landscapes utilizing georeferenced mapping technologies. research. However, the stories from colonialism came to us deformed for a number of reasons. Colonialism is not only imposed by forces external to us, by being the best or by being the for international countries. We have to recognize our own forms of colonialism by being a government action or by being conducted by industrial and agro elites, but also in academic, archaeological, and research based. First, with the core of our own society, which is responsible for social exclusions. To understand the multiple forms of social exclusion, we have to turn to the past to get answers about the complexity of factors that led to the formation of historical discourse as we know it. To review alone the intricate and obscure voices of the past, nor is the isolation of a discipline, in this case archaeology, capable of resulting that data and the appropriation of heritage by the collective. Historical archaeology, history, georeferenced mapping, heritage issues, and linguistics are all connected, as are the stories of the present. Once there are suspect abuses of human indigenous rights protected under the UN Charter, this list also needs to include forensic sciences. In order to develop for archaeological research, linguistic fieldwork, special toponomastic, should be conducted with the aim to record the memory of the sacred places in their cultural meaning. Simultaneously, archaeological surveys must be carried out to understand the sacred sites, their cultural value, and their territorial distribution. The results will be employed for better understanding of social, political, and cultural dynamics that reconfigure the way of life of a group based in community participatory archaeology. The project will also provide strategies and guidelines for rescue the memory of territorial occupation and returning recognition and respect of the places of importance, enabling the group to use the knowledge produced by academic research for the maintenance of their traditions, customs, and culture. The research project Colonization of the Sacred Place of the Xavan Territory of Marauatzet and São Marcos, approved by the Transatlantic Platform for Social Innovation, an international agreement between Brazil, Canada, and Poland, with a joint grant from the São Paulo Research Foundation, the Social Sciences of Humanities Research Council of Canada, and the National Center for Research in Development, will be developed at the Laboratory of Archaeological Studies of the Federal University of São Paulo as a pioneer project of the Teaching and Research and Center of Forensic Archaeology and Anthropology. This research project is also supported by the Humanitarian and Human Rights Research Center of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences and the Forensic Technology Center of Excellence of the National Institute of Justice and RTI International. The main objective is to evaluate through archaeology and linguistics the process which led to the taking of the territory of the Xavante indigenous communities of Marauatzet and São Marcos in the state of Mato Grosso, Brazil. In order to do so, interviews will be carried out for a linguistic evaluation of the memory of the sacred. Archaeological surveys will be carried out to understand the sacred sites, their cultural meaning, and their territorial distribution. Our project uses archaeological and linguistic methodology to reconstruct the extent of territorial loss and ascertain the long-term relationship of Xavante people with their land by examining. First, the distribution of Xavante place names on the large territories. Second, the social memory of their sacred places. And third, archaeological evidence of the landscape used by the Xavante. By examining these key aspects of Xavante history, we will integrate the archaeology of colonialism and post-colonialism, landscape archaeology, and funerary archaeology with language and linguistics in order to review the colonization movement process on the Xavante territory. The main purpose of the project is to apply different fields of inquiry, archaeology, linguistics, ethnographic, bioarchaeology, to document the colonial history of the Xavante people on their traditional territory. Revitalization of the language has improved as a means of maintaining identity and social cohesion of the colonized indigenous people. Social memory confers meanings to named places. The names persist long after the people are forced to move from the territory. The project is rooted in community-based participatory archaeology, stemming from the needs and interests expressed by the Shabbat community of Marawakset. Our project is based on theoretical perspectives of different disciplines that combine aim to answer questions about conflicts and oppression of minority groups in the recent past, provided that data to contribute to the justice system. Academic research also contributes to eliminate policies and discourses that reinforce the colonial legacy which marginalize the indigenous groups. However, it cannot be conducted alone. Academics and indigenous peoples who were victims of human rights violations working together during the whole investigation process can provide a better understanding of the objectives and purpose of the research, as well as the entire cultural and religious system in which they are working in order to discuss the research results and its social impact in short, medium, and long-term changes and contributions. This type of research is a work of great responsibility for both parts. Academics need to be fully involved in the process and to understand the needs of the minority groups connecting forensic interface and human rights. They should not use this title just to attract public attention, but they must present effective results from research that can be used in human rights and forensic contexts through scientific organizations and journal publications. Community archaeology has also a great potential to provide tools of decolonization, giving communities more control over every stage in the research process. Indigenous representatives have the responsibility to represent the interests and needs of their communities. From an academic point of view, the multidisciplinary approach presents advantages for solving complex problems using principles, methodological and theoretical perspectives of each discipline involved in the research. In other words, archaeology, history, anthropology, linguistics, biological anthropology must be taken as a multidisciplinary contribution, not only for providing tools to conduct research, but, more importantly, for studying, analyzing, and interpreting the topic from different viewpoints. In this way, theoretical frameworks provide the basis for establishing methodological approaches and appropriate protocols for each area of the knowledge applied to the research. Indigenous knowledge and indigenous ways of knowing have to form an integral part of research methodology. According to Westcott et al., although interdisciplinary research is necessary to tackle real-world problems effectively, there are numerous barriers to methodological and theoretical development, including the institutional structures of the academy, funding, and the bureaucracy of depth investigations. Furthermore, collaborative archaeology presents its own investigations. Furthermore, collaborative archaeology presents its own difficulties when investigating crimes. By principle, academic research must be responsible for producing scientific data without political activism. Otherwise, the data can be considered obviously biased and not valid to be used within the legal system. In this sense, political activism by involved scientists does more disservice than a real effective contribution. How does one reconcile the need to stay hands-off to demonstrate impartiality in the legal system with the need to truly collaborate with the indigenous people for and with whom they are conducting research? Another relevant issue is sharing of archaeological knowledge and public outreach. Publishing research results in academic journals does not necessarily provide benefits to the indigenous communities involved, and it may be a slow and opaque process. However, collaborative publications with open access licensing, long-term agreements with local communities in developing intricate public outreach programs, books, pamphlets, children's stories, school-oriented workbooks, comic books, websites, public lectures, radio programs, television shows, and new covers, dramatic reenactments, artistic and literary creations will help to overcome these issues. We expect that our research project will help identify patterns of violence suffered by the Shabbat Marwat community and provide essential information and data that will be used for understanding the biological profile of this group and for the improvement of their health and social conditions. The results of the proposal will also be essential for reconstruction and preservation of their history, culture, memory, and identity. It will make an important contribution to the promotion and visibility of their current needs and rights. This research has the potential to spark the future investigations on physical, social, cultural, and moral violence and crimes committed by the Brazilian state against its groups during the period of the military dictatorship and others. Thank you very much for your attention. Here are some references we are using. Thank you. And sorry for my English.
That was fantastic.